New home builders love to create little obstacles for deck builders, such as AC units, electrical meters, and vents. Those obstacles usually do not cause major issues when designing or building a new deck. This video is going to do a deep dive into those obstacles and how to design and build around them. So let's start with air conditioning units. The manufacturers of AC units typically recommend about 5 feet minimum of clearance between the top of an AC unit and the bottom of any fixed structure. That is to promote warm air exhausting out of the unit while it's on. If there is a structure such as a deck that's built less than 5 feet off the height of an AC unit, that warm air could promote mold growth on the bottom of the deck. We know that because we've seen it when we've demoed old decks that were closer to an AC unit than 5 feet. Now it can be done, but it's just something to keep in mind. Anytime you build a deck that's less than 5 feet from the top of the AC unit, the AC unit may not last as long as it's intended to last. As far as clearance around an AC unit, usually a few inches, maybe a foot, is sufficient to promote proper air circulation, but keep in mind that you want to have at least one side of your AC unit easily accessible for any future maintenance or AC unit replacement. Now, if your AC unit is just not in that ideal location for your perfect deck, that AC unit usually can easily be moved by a licensed HVAC expert. Now, the cost to move an AC unit will vary widely depending on a number of factors. If you're moving it just a few inches to a few feet, it could cost about $1,000 to $1,500. If you're moving it to around the corner to the other side of your house, the cost could approach $1,500 to $2,500. But if you call a couple of HVAC companies in your area, they should be able to get you a number either over the phone or in person pretty quickly to estimate how much it would cost to move your AC unit. Of course, the easiest thing to do would be to work with a qualified deck builder who specializes in decks, and they usually can design a deck around an existing AC unit. All right, now let's talk about gas meters and electrical meters. The short of it is that they usually are not an issue. Usually gas meters and electrical meters aren't exactly where a deck would go. But if those meters are where your deck is going to be designed and built, there are a few things to keep in mind. The first and most important is a safety factor. And we're specifically talking about clearance, the ease of access to an electrical meter or gas meter. If your home catches on fire and the firemen show up, they want to be able to quickly and easily find your meter and turn it off. And so that meter needs to be very accessible. Now, this will vary depending on code. Code here in the Southeast Michigan area requires at least 6 foot of headspace in front of that meter and a 3 foot wide walking path clearance space to get to that meter. That way, any firefighter can easily find and access that meter. So if your deck is a second story deck, make sure that there are no structural posts right in front of the meters. Also make sure that the clearance, the height of underneath your deck is at least 6 foot to get to that meter. We also want to keep in mind the underground utilities, the lines running to those meters. Depending on where you are at in the country, those lines may not be buried farther down than 6 to 12 inches. So when you're digging, be sure to hand dig. Don't use any machinery right around those underground utilities. Make sure to call your local call before you dig company, and they will come out and find those lines so you can dig safely. If that meter is still not in the ideal spot for your ideal deck, those electrical and gas meters can usually be moved fairly easily, though at a cost. You usually will need to employ a local licensed electrician or HVAC company and the local utility company. All-in cost to move a meter usually averages between $2,000 to $4,000. All right, next we want to talk about vents. Vents could include a fresh air intake vent, a bathroom vent, a crawl space vent. If that vent, that duct is active, we want to make sure not to permanently block that vent. Dryer exhaust vents, for example, need to be easily accessible for periodic cleaning to clean out that dryer vent every 1 to 2 years. If you don't know if a vent is active or not, do your best to go into your basement, follow that line and see where it leads. Oftentimes, we've had clients say that it was an active vent, and we look in their basement and the vent led to nowhere. It's an old vent that got cut off at some point. And if it is an old vent, no need to worry about designing around it. You can simply build in front of it. If it is an active vent, we want to make sure that it can be easily accessible and can breathe, intake or exhaust. Also, pay close attention to the height of the vent. In our experience, many vents protruding in the back of the home where a deck is being built, the top of the vent is below the top of the desired deck height. If that's the case, your deck builder should be able to easily frame around that vent, allowing that vent to breathe, and from the top of a finished deck, that vent will be completely concealed. Sometimes, though, we do run into where there is a larger vent or the top of the vent is simply higher than the desired deck height. If that's the case, usually the deck's frame can be built around that vent, but that top of the vent will be visible when the deck is done. To circumvent that, we could always build a small box around the top of that vent, or carefully plan for furniture, maybe a sofa or love seat or recliner right over that vent so it is concealed. Vents can usually be moved depending on the vent and the build, the location, a lot of different factors. The cost of moving a vent has so many different factors, if it's brick or vinyl siding or aluminum siding, and what all is entailed. If the basement has a finished drywall ceiling, there's going to be more work involved. But the average cost to move a vent can range widely from maybe $500 to $5,000. All right, so there you have it, different types of vents and units and meters that may or may not cause any issues during your deck build and design process. Be sure to walk the back of your home by yourself and with your deck builder to notice any vents or protrusions that might cause issues. If you're in the Southeast Michigan area, please reach out to Custom Deck Creations. We build around these obstacles all the time and would love to help you out with your deck.